Hey, it's Joe and Joe from DealerClub, and we got a fun topic today, which is you want to be able to put the most into a car to acquire the most cars, right, and beat out all the competition. You better have the best wholesale process to liquidate those cars.
Yeah, I think, really knowing your exit strategy for every single vehicle, especially when you're appraising them, is very important to establish your acquisition strategy. So if you don't know how you're going to exit a car, then it's really hard to put the most into it when you acquire a car. Now, when you're looking to obviously be very competitive with other dealers in the market.
Nobody wants to lose on a trade, right?
Exactly. So you want to make sure that you could step up as much as possible, but not lose your shirt.
Right.
So if you have kind of the best wholesale process, it will lean to the best retail process.
Yeah.
So if you recon the cars, maybe make them worth a little bit more than market value, you can step up a little bit more on the trade. If you plan on retailing certain cars, you can step up a little bit more on the trade. If you take the effort to make sure that you know what's wrong with the car when you take it in, exactly how much it's going to cost, you can step up a little bit on the trade.
Yeah, we talked about this before, but like a good old-fashioned honest trade walk, or maybe even a quick test drive, I think a lot of dealers have, for a long time now, gotten away from that, right? There's fear that comes from potential conflict with that customer trading it in. I personally, I love that. If done correctly, you as the dealer are investing time and energy into their potential trade to try and build value. Now, if it turns out that you drive the car down the street and it doesn't, shift out of third gear, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we got to have a little bit of a conversation about why we can't go and pay a ridiculous amount for your car. But I would say most other times it builds credibility, it builds sincerity, and allows you to have a more informed conversation with those customers that are trading that car in. Now you're better armed to go take that car and bring it to market, stand behind it in a wholesale channel, and maximize on what you could get for that same car.
Well, absolutely. And I think also, going back to not only what is the exit strategy, it isn't as simple as, am I going to wholesale this car? Am I going to retail this car? It's also, what avenues am I going to use in wholesale? Or am I going to retail this car? So there's plenty of different avenues out there, whether it be digital, whether it be physical, and, perhaps a DealerClub, in the future as well, which is a little new spin on it, but allowing people to kind of select where their wholesale is going to go, where they can maximize the profit. So it goes beyond just what can I recon the car for in order to maximize wholesale. It's where can I send it to maximize my wholesale profit as well. So
yeah, and I think shining a light, a big part of what DealerClub is all about is we're shining a light on how to maximize on wholesale, which is something that's always really, I think, lived in the shadows. My time at new car dealerships, and I've been in a lot of new car stores, right, it's fascinating how in most cases, not ubiquitous, but in most cases, there is, it's like the wholesale is double blind from the retail, and that feedback loop of what actual cars cashed for at actual auctions, I think it's imperative that the folks have that knowledge, or that are ones desking the deals. And I understand why, you don't want to do anything to slow down the velocity of selling that next unit, but it doesn't make sense to do dumb moves. It doesn't make sense to blindly step in and lose money on a deal, right? I don't think. Now, you can look at the whole big picture, and if you're chasing a stair step and everything, but then it's no longer dumb, right? And dumb is a harsh word, but I'm just trying to exaggerate the point. But really closing that gap, bringing that knowledge together. And again, wholesale has some magic X factors, which is really the most fascinating thing about it. If I'm a new player bringing 5 cars to an auction and nobody knows who I am, my cars are going to bring less than a seasoned seller who's been at that auction in the same exact lane, or the lane right next to me at the same exact time, who has a reputation.
And some may say that, well, they're a large seller and they get treated unfairly because they're large, or I get treated unfairly because I'm small. Not necessarily. They've built their reputation. They've gone through all the steps to build their audience to really deserve, I don't want to say special treatment, but, special treatment from the buyers even.
Yeah.
Because they know that they're going to pull people and they're going to pull all the money because their cars are historically known for pulling, blood money. So, and that's a good thing. If you can get a car and you overpaid for it, and we're talking now on buy side a little bit at auction, but rather than having to put $1,500 in recon in it, it's going to need an oil change right on your front line.
Yeah. Buyers will willingly, in their actions, not necessarily in conversations, you ask them ahead of time. And I was the same way. I was an egomaniac about how I was the best buyer in the world. We all can't all be the best buyers in the world, right? We have to step up at different times. We convince ourselves why that we stepped up and overpaid. I had it in my head. I wasn't going to pay more than $15,000 for the car. I buy it and I paid $16,200. Well, I can justify it. I was bidding against 4 other guys. We couldn't all be wrong. It almost doesn't matter, right? Like, I am willing to pay based on my actions. If there's reduced risk, because the seller's not going to screw me, because I know I bought a lot of cars from that seller. They're going to take care of me, right? And I trust that they represented the car accurately, and it was a fair auction. I wasn't bidding against a Coke machine or anything like that. Then there's really no reason to have fear. And when you eliminate the fear, you eliminate the uncertainties, you unlock the maximum value of that car.
Well, absolutely, and it prevents you from, kind of getting up out over your skis a little bit on certain cars. But you really got to go back to being a student of the game.
Yep.
Understanding. So obviously, it takes experience. Then it takes taking your lumps as well. But learning from other people, learning from other people's mistakes, learning from other people's successes, and then ultimately perfecting your own wholesale process, and in turn raising that retail bar.
Absolutely. And then what DealerClub is really going to empower here is what took that wholesaler who brings 50 cars a week to the auction, let's say, but has a stellar reputation. It took that person, let's say, 10 years to develop that, maybe longer, right? DealerClub, because we're going to track everything, right? And we're going to present all that information. It's all going to be transparent. You really could fast track your way to a great reputation, exceptional selling results, raving fan buyers that follow you and, want to see everything you list. You could get that stood up in probably just a couple months.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in kind of a previous life, running several hundred cars on digital platforms, I always felt like something was missing. I couldn't build my own brand. I couldn't become the next big seller at a physical that everybody goes to. So I wanted to get out of the cars, but I wanted to be able to maximize profits as does everybody. And I really thought that by building value in the cars, that was the best way to do it. And I still think it is, but I think you couple that with building your own brand too.
Absolutely.
And you can accelerate what took people, 10, 15, 20 years to build. We're looking to allow people to take 10, 15, 20 months to build.
I think faster, honestly. I mean, if over the course of a couple months I get, 20 or 30 cars sold and everybody's happy with those purchases and it follows my listings, what more does that next buyer need to see? It'd be great if it said I had 300 under the, behind me, but if I had 30 behind me and they were solid, like that gives a lot of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing too, this is, going a little bit off the wholesale path, but it's knowing what you can sell at your dealership, but that allows you to step up. I've had several trades come in and it's like, regular cab, short box, Silverado, 4-wheel drive, clean undercarriage. I could step up a little bit on this one.
Of course, specialty truck.
It's a special truck. So, they're rare. So just knowing those little things as well, but it just goes back to the fundamentals. So, that's kind of what I think as far as perfecting that wholesale, turning it into more money retail, and being able to just maximize all those profits. So
absolutely, it all comes together. Anywhere you can increase your exit strategy, and where else in a dealership can you just find and unlock that much more money on a per unit basis? I don't think there's anywhere else. So this is right there. It's probably in the ugliest little corner of your dealership lot. Your property is where those those 8 trades from last week are stuffed in the corner, and they're seen as a problem, and they're seen as something you just want to make go away. And if a wholesaler comes in and will take them all away as a package, but just know, there's more opportunity to be had on those cars. And whether it's you, and you want to lean in and invest in those cars and invest in, whether it's dollars or time, but extracting the value out of those cars by adding some pedigree to them and adding some comfort and confidence to that buyer's experience when they buy those cars. Or if you want to hand them to a wholesaler, just know that that's what they're doing, and that's okay too. But that's where the gold is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, in order to kind of sum it up, to be in control of your own destiny, that's really what we're looking to try and create. So please feel free to go to DealerClub.com, fill out that, that kind of pre-qualification form to see if it's something that would be a good fit to become a member and kind of join us on our journey. So
love it. DealerClub.com. We'll see you there.